The soft light of the gallery illuminated the white walls, reflecting the beauty of my displayed works. Sitting in a corner, with a glass of wine in hand, I tried to contain the anxiety that consumed me. Today was a special day. Sarah, the woman who had taken over my thoughts in recent months, promised she would come. She had always been the muse that inspired my art, and I longed for a moment when we could finally connect beyond friendship. The space was filled with art admirers, critics, and curious onlookers circulating among the paintings. I watched every movement, every laugh, but my heart only raced faster when I thought of Sarah. "Lucas, are you okay?" Oliver, my best friend, asked as he approached. He had a wide smile on his face, but I could see a shadow of concern in his eyes. "I'm just a little nervous," I replied, trying to disguise my anxiety. "You know how important this is to me." "Of course, you're going to crush it. And if Sarah is here, it will be even better," he said, winking. The mention of her name made my heart race even more. "She won't be able to resist your talent." The gallery door opened, and a fresh breeze entered, bringing with it the scent of the city. It was then that I saw Sarah. She looked stunning, wearing a dress that accentuated her curves and a smile that lit up the room. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world around us faded away. "Hi, Lucas. Sorry for being late," she said, approaching with a sparkle in her eyes. "This gallery is incredible. Thank you for coming, Sarah. It means a lot to me," I said, feeling warmth rise to my face. "Would you like to see some of my works?" "Of course. I'm very curious," she replied, her eyes shining with excitement. We walked side by side, discussing the inspirations behind each painting. The chemistry between us was palpable, and I wondered if she felt it too. As we talked, I noticed Oliver standing a little further away, watching us with an expression that mixed admiration and something darker. He crossed his arms, and a fleeting look of frustration passed across his face. "Are you having fun?" he asked, his voice somewhat tense. "Yes, a lot." "You should join us," Sarah said, smiling at Oliver. But I could feel the tension between them was undeniable. Something told me there was more than met the eye. "I'm going to get more wine," Oliver replied, abruptly turning and walking away. His behavior left me unsettled. "He seems a bit grumpy, doesn't he?" I commented, trying to change the subject. "No, he's just a little anxious, I think," Sarah replied, but her expression faltered for a moment. "It's a big day for you." "Yeah, I really hope everything goes well," I said, trying to ignore the unease growing within me. Time passed quickly as we talked and laughed, and every moment with Sarah made me dream of a future that felt closer than ever. After a while, we decided to step away from the crowd and found a small outdoor space where the city pulsed around us. "You know, Lucas, I've always admired your talent. Your works have a sensitivity that few can convey," Sarah said, looking into my eyes. "Thank you, that means a lot to me. You've always been my biggest inspiration," I replied, feeling my heart race. I would like to know if you would want to go out with me one of these days. Just the two of us." She hesitated for a brief moment, and my heart sank. "Of course, I would love to," she said, and a smile spread across her face. "Let's make it happen." Before I could respond, Oliver returned, interrupting the moment. "What are you two whispering about?" he asked with a half-smile. I felt a wave of discomfort wash over me. The look he gave us was not that of a friend, but something more possessive. "We're just talking about art," Sarah said, but I could sense the tension in the air. The friendship I had with Oliver, which had always been solid, seemed to be starting to crack, and a shadow of distrust began to hover over my thoughts. What was happening? I woke up that morning with a weight in my chest that felt heavier than I could bear. I sat on the edge of the bed, my phone vibrating incessantly beside me. It was Oliver, sending messages I didn't have the courage to open. What more could he possibly have to say? The image of the text message I accidentally discovered was still fresh in my mind, like an open wound that wouldn't heal. I went to the bathroom and faced my reflection in the mirror. What would I say to him? What should I do? I decided I needed to confront him. With a knot in my stomach, I put on a t-shirt and left the house, the biting cold of London greeting me like an old acquaintance. With each step toward the cafe where we used to meet, my anxiety grew, but a determination also emerged. I could no longer allow betrayal to settle between us without a conversation. When I entered the cafe, I spotted Oliver sitting at a table in the corner, his head down, nervously fiddling with his cup of coffee. When he saw me, he lifted his eyes, and the smile that used to light up his face was absent. The tension was palpable. I sat down across from him, and, before he could say anything, I tore off the mask of cordiality. "I saw the message, Oliver. About you and Sarah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but my heart raced as if it wanted to escape my chest. He hesitated, the expression on his face shifting from surprise to automatic defensiveness. "Lucas, this isn't what you think. So, explain it to me. What is it, exactly?" I interrupted, anger starting to bubble up inside me like a storm. "You and her met in secret. How many times? Why did you do this?" Oliver sighed, looking lost. "I didn't want you to know. I just didn't know how to deal with it." "How to deal with what?" "The fact that you betrayed me with the woman I love." My voice rose, drawing the attention of a few people at nearby tables. "You know how much this hurts me, don't you?" He looked down, shame written all over his face. "I didn't want to hurt you, Lucas. It was a mistake. I let myself get carried away." "A mistake? Do you think this is just a mistake?" "This is betrayal, Oliver." The pain in my chest morphed into an internal scream, an anguish I could barely process. "And you can try to justify it all you want, but the truth is you didn't think of me. You didn't think of our friendship." Silence settled between us, heavy like a storm cloud. I could see he was struggling with his emotions, but I had no more patience for this. I stood up, feeling a wave of sadness wash over me. "I don't know if I can continue this friendship if you aren't honest with me. I don't know if I can look at you the same way again." I left the cafe, the words echoing in my mind. The city felt grayer, the wind colder. I walked aimlessly, trying to process everything. The betrayal affected not only my relationship with Oliver, but also how I viewed Sarah. The memories of laughter and shared glances between us were now tainted. As I walked, a part of me wanted to call Sarah, to ask what was going on. But the pain was so intense that I hesitated. What would I say? "Hey, are you still cheating on me with my best friend?" No, I wasn't ready for that. In the following days, I plunged into a self-imposed seclusion. I went to my studio, where paints and canvases became my only refuge. Art was the only way to express the confusion and pain that were consuming me. But even there, the memories of Oliver and Sarah were constant, like shadows that could not be brushed aside. The phone rang a few times, and it was always Sarah. I didn't answer. Part of me wanted to hear her voice, but the other part knew that everything she said wouldn't change the betrayal that had already occurred. The pain of disillusionment isolated me, creating a barrier between me and the world. I needed time to understand all of this, to rebuild myself. As I tried to lose myself in the strokes of my art, the pain of betrayal still throbbed in my chest. I was in my studio, surrounded by paints and canvases, but the inspiration that once flowed freely was now suffocated by the weight of disillusionment. The colors I used to mix with joy now seemed dull, as if the universe was contorting in response to my agony. It was in this setting that I met Emily. She entered the studio with a sunny smile, bringing with her a vibrant energy. "Hi, you're Lucas, right?"
"I'm Emily."
"My friend mentioned you and your paintings," she said, with a friendly tone that immediately made me relax a little. Her gaze was curious and welcoming, and I couldn't help but feel a slight relief amidst the emotional storm consuming me. "Yes, that's me," I replied timidly, trying to hide the confusion still boiling inside me. "Welcome to my little world of chaos." "Chaos? I would say it's more of a beautiful mess," she joked, observing my blank canvas. "I can see you have incredible talent. What happened? You seem a little lost." Her question caught me off guard. I decided to open up, even if just a little. "It's complicated. I'm dealing with some personal stuff. Betrayals from people I considered close," I confessed, the sadness showing in my voice. Emily stepped closer and, with empathy, said, "If you need to vent, I'm here. Sometimes talking helps." I smiled, grateful for her willingness. Over time, our conversations became more frequent, and the friendship between us deepened. Emily not only listened but also encouraged me to express my emotions through art. Why not turn that pain into something beautiful? Into a painting that represents what you feel? She suggested during one of our talks. And that's how I began to channel my frustration and betrayal into something creative. After a few weeks, I decided it was time to confront Sarah. I needed answers, closure that would allow me to move on. The cafe where we agreed to meet was a place we used to frequent together. The smell of fresh coffee and the buzz around seemed strange now, as if the world was oblivious to my agony. When she arrived, her smile crumbled upon seeing me. We sat down, and before she could say anything, I interrupted her. "Sarah, we need to talk. What happened between you and Oliver?" She hesitated, her eyes reddening. "Lucas, I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to find out like this." "So, you really are with him? How could you do this to me?" "To our friendship." Each word that left my mouth felt like a dagger piercing my heart further. "I don't know what happened. It was a moment of weakness. Oliver made me feel alive in a way I didn't expect," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "But I still love you, Lucas. You're my true love." "Love? You can't love someone and betray that person at the same time." My voice trembled with frustration. "How can you say that now, after everything? I know I messed up. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. Please give me a chance," she pleaded, her voice choked. I looked at her, and the pain of betrayal and disillusionment seemed to consume me from within. "I need time, Sarah. I need to understand all of this, away from you and Oliver. I can't deal with this right now." I stood up, feeling the weight of the conversation crushing me. I left the cafe, without looking back, my heart in pieces. The decision to distance myself from both of them felt like the only way out, but the pain of betrayal still followed me like a shadow. I needed time, a place where I could clear my mind and find a way to move forward. And so, I began to plan a trip to a small coastal town, a place where I could breathe and, who knows, maybe find a bit of peace amidst the emotional whirlwind that surrounded me. The sea breeze caressed my face as I walked along the deserted beach. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and I couldn't help but feel a little lighter, despite the emotional storm still raging inside me. The trip to that small coastal town was proving to be a necessary refuge, a pause to breathe after the devastating revelation about Oliver and Sarah. I needed time to process everything. As I explored the beach house my grandfather had left me, my fingers brushed against an unexpected object on a dusty shelf. A journal. Upon opening it, I was immediately transported to the words of my grandmother, who wrote about love, betrayal, and the complexity of human relationships. The letters I found among its pages were testimonies of a life filled with ups and downs, of lost and found loves, of difficult choices. "Dear Lucas," began one of the letters, "life is a tangle of paths, and sometimes, no matter how much we wish to, we cannot control what happens around us." With each sentence, I felt as if my grandmother were hugging me, offering comfort amidst my despair. She spoke about how betrayals can hurt, but also how they can teach us to value true love. "Betrayal is a double-edged sword," she continued. "It can break us, but it can also give us the strength we need to move on and find what truly matters." Her words reverberated in my mind, and I realized that although the pain was real, it didn't have to define me. It was time for me to decide what I wanted for my future. That night, as the moon reflected its glow on the sea, I was struck by a vivid dream. I found myself in a flower-filled field, and my grandmother stood before me, a serene smile on her face. "Lucas, my dear," she said, her voice soft like the night breeze. "Life is made of choices. Don't let the betrayal of others stop you from following your heart. Remember what you love and what truly matters." I woke up with tears in my eyes, but also with a new sense of determination. The pain of betrayal was still present, but I could not allow it to paralyze me. It was time to return to London and reclaim my life, my art, my essence. I no longer wanted to carry the weight of Oliver and Sarah's disloyalty. With a lighter heart, I began to plan my return. The idea of a new exhibition began to form in my mind, something that would symbolize not just the pain I had faced, but also the beauty of overcoming it. I wanted people to see not only the betrayal, but also the strength that comes from rising again. On the way back, as the train rocked gently, I looked out the window, watching the landscapes change. Each tree, each building, each face that passed reminded me that I was about to start anew. What had happened with Oliver and Sarah would not be the end of my story, but merely a twist that would lead me to something new and more meaningful. Upon arriving in London, the city felt different. The bright lights, the hurried people, everything pulsed with a new energy. I headed straight to my studio, where the blank canvases awaited me like promises of new stories to be told. With a brush in hand, I began to create. My emotions flowed in the form of colors and shapes, and as I worked, the pain began to dissipate. "Are you feeling better?" Emily's soft voice echoed behind me. I turned and saw her concerned yet hopeful expression. "I am," I replied, smiling. I realized that I need to reconnect with what I truly love. Art is my refuge, and I want to use it to express all of this. "That's amazing, Lucas. You're a talented artist, and your voice deserves to be heard," she said, stepping closer and observing the blank canvas. "Can I help in any way?" I felt a wave of gratitude for having someone like Emily by my side. She not only understood my pain, but also encouraged me to move forward. "Actually, you can. I want you to be by my side at the exhibition. Your presence means a lot to me," I said sincerely. "Of course. I would love to," she replied, her eyes shining. The weight I had been carrying began to dissipate. I was determined. It was time to reconnect with my art and, more importantly, with who I really was. The night of the exhibition was filled with twinkling lights and animated murmurs. The gallery was crowded, and I felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. My works, which represented my pain and rebirth, were on display, but what truly consumed me was Sarah's presence in that space. My heart raced when I saw her approaching, her expression one of apprehension. "Lucas, can you give me a minute?" Her voice was soft, almost pleading. I hesitated. The memories of her betrayal still burned like open wounds. "What do you have to say that hasn't already been said?" I asked, trying to remain calm, but feeling the anger bubbling beneath the surface. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I didn't want to hurt you," she began, tears forming in her eyes. I was confused. Oliver made me believe that you could betray me and still be the same? I cut in, unable to hold back the pain in my voice. "You broke me, Sarah. You and Oliver destroyed everything we built." She stepped closer, reaching out as if she wanted to touch my arm, but I pulled away. "Please listen. I love you, Lucas. I always have. Oliver was a mistake, a slip-up. I should have been stronger." "Stronger? You have no idea what that means," I replied, my voice rising. "You didn't just betray me. You also betrayed the friendship you had with Oliver. You can't just apologize and expect everything to go back to normal." The tension in the air was palpable when suddenly, Oliver appeared from across the room. His presence was like a shadow looming over me. He shot me a challenging look, as if he had nothing to fear. But now I knew I was no longer willing to stay silent. "Lucas," he shouted, marching toward me. "I didn't come here to argue. This isn't the time. I interrupted, feeling a surge of courage I didn't know I possessed. "You think you can just show up here, and everything will be forgotten? You broke our friendship, Oliver. And now everyone can see who you really are." The room fell silent. Eyes turned toward us, curiosity and apprehension etched on the faces of the guests. Oliver tried to defend himself, but my words cut through him like knives. "You have always been dishonest. With every smile, every moment we shared, you were plotting behind my back. And the worst part is that you thought you had the right to call yourself my friend. A friend doesn't betray. Lucas, please don't do this here. Oliver pleaded, but his voice sounded weak, and his confidence began to crumble. I will not stay silent any longer. You are not the first person to betray someone close, and I won't be the last to fall into that trap, I declared, determination swelling in my chest. These lies and betrayals end now. It was then that Emily, my new friend, stepped forward. She had been watching everything from afar, her eyes shining with a mix of empathy and anger. Lucas, I need to say something, she began, her voice clear and strong. I knew about the betrayal. I'm not friends with Oliver, and I always knew he wasn't someone you could trust. Oliver turned to her, his face twisting in indignation. You don't know what you're talking about, Emily. I know you're untrustworthy. And that's not just an opinion, it's a fact. You've done this before, and you will do it again, she replied without hesitation. The room was tense, and the truth hung in the air like poison. Oliver's expression turned to desperation, and I realized that we were finally exposed. The betrayal was not just a story of a broken love, it was a revelation about who we truly were. In that moment, I felt liberated. The tears that once suffocated me now felt like a distant echo. I don't need you, Oliver.
I don't need you, Sarah.
And tonight is about me and my art. I will not let you extinguish my light, I declared, taking a deep breath, feeling that I had finally found my voice. The decision to expose Oliver was like a relief, a breath of freedom after months of emotional oppression. With trembling but determined hands, I wrote a post on social media. The words flowed from me like ink on a blank canvas. Today, I decided to share a truth I can no longer silence. Betrayal is not just pain. It is a choice that defines us. Oliver, my best friend, chose to cross a line that should never have been crossed. Each word I wrote felt like I was pulling a weight from within me. It wasn't just revenge. It was a way to set myself free. I clicked publish and watched the message spread across the network, like an echo reverberating through the walls of a grand hall. Soon, supportive messages began to appear, friends and acquaintances expressing solidarity. In one corner of the room, Oliver watched everything, his face pale and his eyes filled with disbelief. He approached me, and I couldn't help but feel the urge to confront him. You have no power over me anymore, Oliver, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor I still felt. You betrayed me, and now everyone knows who you really are. Lucas, wait. This isn't fair, he protested, his voice loud and desperate. I never wanted this to happen, but it did, I shouted, feeling the anger and pain of words I couldn't contain. You broke our friendship and, more importantly, you broke the trust one had in you. I can no longer remain silent. After this exchange, the people around us began to disperse, some casting disapproving looks at Oliver, who retreated like a shadow, his expression a mix of anger and shame. The look he shot in my direction was that of someone who realized he had lost more than a friendship. He had lost his reflection. Sarah appeared shortly after, her face pale and her eyes brimming with tears. Lucas, please listen to me, she pleaded, but there was no room left for empty words. Listen to you? You were the first to betray that trust. How can I believe you now? The pain consumed me, but the strength I had found kept me from retreating. I know I was wrong, and I deeply regret it. But I love you, Lucas, she exclaimed, desperation echoing in her voice. Love is not just a word, Sarah. It's a choice, and you made yours. A heavy silence hung between us, and I realized something had changed within me. I was no longer the insecure boy I once was. I was a man seeking authenticity. With Oliver isolated and Sarah filled with regrets, I finally turned to Emily, my new friend. She stood there, firm, with an encouraging smile. You were amazing, she said, and the warmth of her words enveloped me like a hug. You know, I never thought I could do that, I confessed, still trying to absorb the wave of emotions flowing through me. But I had to. I need to move on. You deserve to be happy, Lucas, Emily replied, her voice soft and full of understanding. And I'm here for you. Over time, our friendship began to blossom unexpectedly. Emily was not just a friend. Something deeper was developing between us, a bond forming amidst the chaos. Our conversations became more frequent, and our smiles more genuine. Each meeting was a new discovery, and I felt like I was finally finding the happiness I had longed for. On a starlit night, as we walked through the park, I turned to her and said, "Thank you for being here. You helped me see that I can still believe in love and friendship." She smiled, and I knew that despite the betrayal and pain, there was a bright future ahead of me. The art I loved so much began to reflect this new phase of my life. The exhibition I organized to showcase my journey of overcoming was approaching, and I could hardly wait to share every piece of myself with the world again. Now, more than ever, I was ready to create not just works of art, but also a life filled with authenticity, love, and true friendship.